going? Will.
All right. You want us to start off
Go ahead.
With openings? All right. How's it going, everyone? Waiting the real day here. We got Chris in the house. And
We got Ty. You. Music too?
Yeah,
welcome to Down Derpy Podcast.
Yeah.
We're doing a second one on music?
Yes.
Oh, cool.
Second one on music.
Well, all right.
You know what that means, Ty.
Yep, I'm going to be all over it.
All right. Hit her up then, buddy.
Oh, we already started?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're live.
All right, gotcha. Okay, let me see. Let's see. I actually made a top 1,000 list. It was a top 100. I turned it into a top 1,000 favorite albums list. Let's see. My favorite album of this year so far is Kids See Ghost, which is a collaboration between Kanye West and Kid Cudi. Let me see. Let me see. Has anyone ever heard of the group? Let me think. Let me think of something. Let me think of a recent group I started listening to. Have I talked about Death Grips at all?
No.
Wait, no?
Not that I remember.
They're like one of my favorite groups. But Death Grips is a experimental hip hop group. I've probably talked about them before. I don't know. My mind is kind of blank. But so Death Grips are an experimental hip hop group from Sacramento, California. They're one of the most acclaimed groups of this generation, and they're known for kind of combining industrial music, like hardcore electronic music and punk and all this other stuff with their hip hop. But they're also kind of known for their mysterious kind of like really lo-fi budget music videos and their mysterious kind of persona. And they rarely accept interviews. They rarely ever want any kind of publicity online. I mean, on streets. All right, looks like someone non-messaged me again. Okay. All right. All right. Here. Anyways, now let's see. So anyways, yeah, that's kind of what they are. I just think they're interesting because I've never seen a group advertise themselves the way they do. Because like they did the Death Grips is Online thing where they retweeted a bunch of people who like said the same thing they said when they tweeted them. Okay. See what else I can talk about. What kind of music do you listen to? Have you been listening to, Chris?
That's actually a pretty decent question, Ty, because recently I decided that I was going to sit down and experience a lot of new music that I never listened to before. And I actually took your advice and I sat down and listened to, I guess, what would be some of your favorite bands and albums.
Mm-hmm.
I actually listened to Death Grips and Money Store.
Yeah.
Money Store, sorry. Mm-hmm. Swans to Be Kind.
Mm-hmm.
The Animal Collective. What was the name of that album?
No Spirit, They're Gone, Spirit, They Vanish.
That'd be the one. And there was another one. What was it?
Lonesome Crowded West by Modest Mouse. Is that it?
Nope. It was a Kanye West album, I think.
My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy.
No, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. It was not that one. It was Kendrick Lamar. It was a Butterfly.
Yeah, that one's good.
Yes. And I'll be straightforward. I did not care for the Animal Collective album.
Yeah, it's not for everyone.
No, I don't think it is. I don't care for like loud ass screeching noises and just straight up noises.
Well, let me tell you this. That album I didn't like that album when I first listened to it either. But one thing I like about the album is the entire album is supposed to revolve around A.B. Terra's childhood and him growing up, basically. And the screeching noises are almost supposed to take the listener out of their comfort zone, quite literally. Because really, if you think about it, there's not really all that much noise throughout it. There's more stuff that isn't noise than there is. Because the noise in it isn't meant to be enjoyable, but it's meant to almost pull the listener out of their comfort zone. But also some of it almost represents like a child or maybe innocents dying, I guess, if that makes sense. But a lot of the album is supposed to represent A.B. Ter's life growing up. That's why. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, didn't care for that one. To Pimp a Butterfly, I think there was one song on there that I enjoyed. I wish I could remember the name of it.
The Black of the Berry.
No.
That's my favorite song on it.
No, it's might be. If I looked at the list, I know exactly what I'm talking about. But there was one song on there I didn't, I actually enjoyed kind of. The rest I didn't care for at all. Swans to Be Kind. I don't get it. Listen to the whole album. Almost put me to sleep.
Yeah, they're not for everyone either, but that album's pretty long though. It's 2 hours long.
Yeah, I know. I actually listened to it while me and Will were playing Black Ops 3, I think. And let me tell you, I was falling asleep while playing online. And that is not good, bro. That is not good. So yeah, no, I actually did. I extended my music listening.
What did you think of the Money Store?
I didn't care for it.
Oh, you didn't like any of my albums?
I didn't care for their style at all.
Yeah.
I think, and I'm gonna be blunt, I think the word experimental is used a lot to explain something that ain't as good as it should be. Because I think that experimental is used as an excuse for something that ain't great.
No, basically what experimental is experimental is basically a music that doesn't fall under a particular category. It's basically what experimental is. I mean, experimental can be films too, so like Eraserhead is experimental. Yeah.
Eraserhead, though, didn't make me want to claw my ears out as I was listening to it, though.
Yeah.
That is...
There's some of the albums, I mean, there's some things that you would need to give a second listen. I'm not saying you need to, but there's some things, if I watch a movie once, I'm like, I don't get it. And the second time I watch it, I'm like, oh, this is
now,
good. Yeah.
That's actually a really good point, and I'm actually glad you brought that up, because I would completely agree with you on a lot of things. Lost Highway is a really good film by David Lynch. First time I watched it, I didn't care for it. Second time I watched it, I thought it's an absolute fucking masterpiece and could easily be one of his best. So I do agree extensively with that point of view. But what I don't agree with is that, because I actually did go back and I did listen to The Money Store a second time. And I did listen to the Animal Collective album a second time. And the second time I listened to it, I still didn't care for it. Because I say, okay, to me, like, don't take this as an attack. This ain't an attack on you. This is music. We're discussing music. I don't see it as music. Now, I get it. It is different compared to all kinds of music. That'd be like someone saying, Da Vinci is an artist. His works are artistry. And then looking at Picasso and you say, that ain't art. So I understand that I'm doing that same thing right now. But let me compare, say, Danzig to Animal Collective. Now, of course, they're completely different bands and completely different genres. I completely understand that. But they both make music. I enjoy Danzig's music. I like the bluesy, heavy metal rock and roll style. I enjoy that. To me, it's smooth. It's almost easy to listen to. It gets me in the groove for things. Animal Collective, to me, was loud, screeching noises. And it didn't get me in the mood for anything other than, oh my God, this is like being in traffic. So I think, as far as albums like that one goes, I think Experience. I don't think what is experimental. I think Experience is what might bring you to like an album like that, whereas experimental is just a style, and experimental can be bad.
Well, I mean, yeah. The thing is, some people, I kind of get it. Some people might try to put experimental under a category. Like some people might call something, if it's bad, just call it experimental. That's not really what it really is, because experimental is basically just music that doesn't fall under a particular category, so they just call it experimental. And there's other experimental.
But listen, I've seen that with all kinds of like Animal Collective. What was the other one?
Death Grips.
Death Grips.
Yeah.
Everyone will say when you bring up, first of all, I don't think they're good. I'll bring up the fact I don't think they're good, and they'll say, well, they're experimental. You don't get it. No, I do get it. I get the fact it's experimental. I just don't care for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I mean, they're not for everyone. I mean,
no, I completely agree. A lot of screeching noises is definitely, to me, not a, harmony that helps soothe the soul.
I know, but one thing I might bring up is that the screeching, like the noise, the harsh noise, because there are harsh noise layered out throughout it, but the harsh noise is not meant to be enjoyable throughout it. It's just meant to, because really that's a big thing. A lot of people criticize Spirit, they're gone, Spirit, they vanished for, because when I first listened to it, I actually didn't like the release at all, and it kind of took me a while to actually start enjoying it, because I honestly didn't really. That's a big reason why I hated the album so much at first as well, is because of the noise. But the honestly, later on, the more I listened to it, it's like the noise honestly didn't really phase me throughout it, because the noise really is, because really if you look at the project as a whole, there's really not that much harsh noise for going on throughout the project, because not even because the only songs that really even have harsh noise in it is the first track. The second track just has a little bit at the beginning. The third track is completely harsh noise, but it's also an interlude. And then the last track just has a bit of harsh noise, and then one song, I think Penny Dreadful, is just a tiny little bit at the end. It's like the softest harsh noise. And then the last one, Alvin Rowe, which is my favorite song of all time, is just at the beginning. And actually, the harsh noise on Alvin Rowe is actually supposed to represent a child crying, being born, and then the drumming, Panda Bear's drumming, is supposed to represent a mother calming it down. So honestly, I think the album is incredibly creative, and the fact that they made it at such a young age is honestly, yeah.
Well, okay, let's actually talk, because, first of all, we've been talking the whole time, and Will's just been sitting there silent. But before I allow, before Will talks, because I got to ask you this. If you hadn't been told about the baby screaming and the mother, what you said, would you have got that from that? Would those loud screeching noises actually made you think baby screaming and then so-and-so mother what you said? If no one ever told
honestly, I kind of, I knew the album had something to do with childhood when we're reading through the lyrics. In fact, it's actually not, it's a theory mostly, but I don't think they've really ever, but I would kind of say that's kind of how I view it. I have heard people say that before, but I would say that's kind of how I view it. But I know that the album does have a lot to do with A.B. Terra's life, because it's pretty, even in the little booklet, it even says like stuff about childhood and all this stuff. And it clearly is because about his life and about his childhood, because clearly it's brought up a lot throughout the lyrics, I guess. That makes sense.
All right, well, say something.
I like jazz.
Yeah, no, I was actually about to ask him. I was going to go, I know you like jazz. Now what makes you like jazz as a whole?
I like jazz.
Now, see, I'm not a fan of jazz. I'll straight up admit that. If I had to pick between, say, jazz and the blues, I'll pick the blues any day over jazz. So,
better.
Do what?
I think jazz is better.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, but go ahead, Will.
Well, first off, honestly, I haven't listened to a whole lot of jazz.
My own though. It was
in
Black
a while.
Lady by Charles Mingus.
Yeah, I haven't listened to jazz in a long while. I actually went back and listened to a whole bunch of metal bands, but they'll come later. But what got me into jazz is just, I don't know. It's easy listening. It's soothing, and It just you can just listen to it, close your eyes, and just absolutely relax.
Wait, Will, have you ever heard of Miles Davis?
Miles Davis, yes, I believe so.
Yeah, he's one of my favorite jazz musicians. And Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Charles Mingus. Yeah, they're probably some of my favorites. And actually, one thing I might recommend is if you want to hear an album that kind of combines jazz and metal, look up Naked City by John Zorn. And also, actually, the cover for it is, if you heard of the photographer Ouija, the cover is basically a picture of one of the photos he took of a dead body, and that's what they use as the cover. And another album that kind of combines jazz and metal is a group called Atheists. They have an album called Unquestionable Presence, and it's it just has jazz fusion. It doesn't really have any horns or anything like that in it, but they're a death metal group, but they're actually surprisingly light for a death metal group, because a lot of death metal groups were influenced by Slayer, so a lot of them they're kind of one of those groups that kind of has a sound kind of similar to Slayer, because they were the heaviest out of the big four. But anyways, continue.
Yeah, but like primarily in terms of jazz music goes, like the number one guy who I listen to the most, which is pretty much most common guy to listen to, is Kenny G, which
I don't like Kenny G.
A lot of people would think he's overrated, which he is. He's considered like the king of jazz, modern day jazz, anyhow. And yeah, I think his stuff is enjoyable, but there, like, I can't list off like off the top of my head like a whole bunch of other jazz musicians, but there's plenty that I just listen to, just various different bands and just solo musicians altogether. But of course, like my style of music doesn't just stay with jazz. I spread out to like stuff like, as I discussed earlier, like metal. I went back to metal, listened to stuff like Metallica, listened to a bit of Megadeth, Avenged Sevenfold for just out of blue, and several others, just because I wanted to.
Oh,
what is it?
Go ahead, finish.
No, but yeah. The reason why I got into go back into metal and all that is because figured go back, see if I still like it. Yeah, honestly, I actually do. So I want to listen to some more metal, down the road, obviously.
Cool.
Danzig, album 1 and 2. Definitely should give a listen to. But let me ask you about metal, though, since you brought it up.
Okay.
I recently made videos about metal, where I did the top. It's not the top 5 great. Like, okay, I've had to explain this to some people. Like, when I do like albums and shit, it's not like or songs. It's not the top 5 greatest metal albums of all time. Like, for mine, it was top 5 greatest albums, metal albums. Top 5 of the greatest. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, there's plenty more great metal albums other than the ones I mentioned in that video. But let me ask you a question. In that video, is there any albums there that you agree with and disagree with, if you remember the ones that I put?
I actually think I like every group that you put in there. I mean, for Danzig, I don't really listen to a lot of Danzig. I like Misfits a lot, though. But hold on, I need to look at the video again to see what was all in there. But for Megadeth, I actually would say that I actually think I kind of like Megadeth more than Metallica, in all honesty. I put think Rust in Peace is actually probably, I would say, either Rust in Peace or Rain in Blood is my favorite thrash metal album of all time. But one thing I don't agree with is you put Undertow as the best Tool album. I personally think it's Better Alice or Anima.
I put Undertow as the best Tool album because it is the best Tool album.
Not to me.
What? Okay, what is the best Tool album?
Lateralis.
Lateralis?
Yes.
See, I don't know, man.
Undertow is probably my 3rd favorite.
Let's see though. Will, did you agree with it though?
Well, I would have to look back at that video because I honestly can't remember the back of my head.
Well, I put Metallica's Master of Puppet, or no, Metallica's Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, I think Ride the Lightning is my favorite Metallica album. I agree with you on that.
I put Megadeth Rest in Peace.
And that is the best Megadeth album.
I put Judas Priest Painkiller. I put Danzig 2, and what the fuck was it? And then Undertow for Tool.
Yeah, so the only one I actually would for albums you put, I would say are the group's best, except Undertow I completely disagree with. I gotta admit. I would personally put Lateralis.
I would never put that's one thing I would never put Lateralis. To me, putting Lateralis on there would be like putting Judas Priest, Nostradamus. It's not a terrible album. It's just not a.
Do you like Anima at least?
Not like what?
Anima?
Yeah, no, Anima ain't bad. Like Anima,
that's my second favorite album. I think Anima and Lateralis are by far their best, in my opinion.
See, Lateralis. I don't like Lateralis for. I don't care for the songs. I also don't care for the fact that. How do I put this? It's one of those albums that all the people online, I guess you'd call them posers, talk about. That's the one thing that I hate. I hate people that will always have the same opinion as someone else. Like you could easily take a person and then say Anthony Fantano. Okay. Say Anthony Fantano. You take Anthony Fantano and you find someone who watches him religiously. And you can easily find someone who watches him religiously who will share almost all his views. Like Anthony Fantano gave the Money Store or Money Shop 10 out of 10. Money Store? Okay. Yeah. 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
No, there's no way in hell. I give it a 3 or 4. No fucking way I'd agree with that.
I'm just kidding.
3 or 4.
God damn. The fuck? Sound like a goddamn pterodactyl.
And he gave Swans to Be Kind 10 out of 10.
Yep.
I'd give it a 2.
Wait, what?
Yeah, no, seriously, I'd give it a 2.
Mm.
See, and the funniest shit, though, is I know people who would look at his reviews for those 4 albums, because he gave 4 albums 10 out of 10s.
Yes.
I know that. I know one was Swans, one was a Money Store, and then there was
Butterfly.
Yeah, Butterfly. Yeah, I give Butterfly 5. So he gave all those a 10 out of 10. And of course, obviously, I agree with it. But I know people that would completely agree with him, and everything he says, they completely agree. Like he gave another 10 out of 10 for that Kanye West.
Kids See Ghosts.
Yeah, Kids See Ghosts album, a 10 out of 10. I give it a 5. But I know people that give it a fucking 10 out of 10 because they follow everything he says religiously and agree with everything he says.
Well, there are some things. I do think Anthony Fantano is a cool guy. There's some things I agree with him with. Some things I don't. Because one thing is he gave My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy a 6, and everyone lost their minds because a lot of people view that as one of the best albums of the decade easily. And I do too. I honestly think that album's a 10 out of 10, but he gave it a 6, and a lot of people lost their minds over that. Another thing, he gave Carrie and Lowell by Tuffy and Stevens a 7 out of 10, and that album, and actually the video is pretty much mostly dislikes, and even though it's a good rating, but that video, a lot of people saw it as one of either that or Illinois as his best release he's ever done. And I personally think Carrie and Lowell is even better than Illinois, and I love Illinois. So let me see. He gave Ooze by King Cruel a 3 out of 10. That was one of my favorite albums of 2017. He gave, let me see. He gave, what else did I didn't agree with? I think he said he really didn't like Hospice by the Antlers, and that's one of my favorite albums of 2009. He said another thing that's a big thing, I actually asked him what he thought of Spirit They're Gone, Spirit They Vanished, and he actually said, I kind of appreciate Animal Collective for going that in an experimental direction on the first album, but it's not one of my favorites by them. He said his favorite is either Sung Tongs or Strawberry Jam, and I had to disagree with that because I think Spirit They're Gone, Spirit They Vanished, in my opinion, is my favorite album. So there are some things I agree with him with, but some things I don't. But that's kind of how it is with everyone. But
yeah. No, I just always have a problem with people following him, or hell, even a movie critic. I don't agree with half the shit Nostalgia Critic says, or AVGN, or a lot of these online critics, or even Roger Ebert. Like Roger Ebert, he said a lot of like shit that I don't agree with. There was one fucking movie. I wish I could remember what it was. But he gave it a thumbs down, and I was like, dude, I don't get how you could do that.
I think Roger Ebert even said he didn't like A Clockwork Orange, I think.
Well, Gene Siskel gave Jacob's Ladder a thumbs down. I certainly don't agree with that. And he gave fucking, I think it was Blade Runner, a thumbs down. So
I know that the reception for Blade Runner was mixed on its initial.
Yeah. Blade Runner definitely is a movie that had to grow a cult following and then got huge, like bigger than most cult followings. It got like huge following. So I don't know, but it is 10 o'clock, so it is time to get the fuck off here. So I hope everyone had a good time, and we will see you guys later.
Oh, all right. I guess we're already done. Okay.
All right, bye. Get the fuck out of here.
Exactly.